Episode 4. We're back. I do not have a tank top with a catfish on it, with a pickaxe and a mining
Thank
helmet.
God. I am wearing a Voltron shirt, though.
It's a really nice comic
It
book
is.
shirt.
I love it. It's a great shirt. If you're not a Voltron fan, you're wrong. We're sitting here getting ready to talk sports cards and sports. We are just pounding slushies from Sonic, and these are Red Bull slushies. And I thought when I saw the commercial for these that it was kind of a joke. It wasn't like real. And we pull into Sonic, and I watched the dude pour an entire can of
It's for real.
Red Bull into this slushie, and I got so excited.
It's for real. It's for serious. Also, if you hear elephants stampeding, it's my family and Gary's wife, who's completely disregarded our very important announcement that we're recording in our studio, to which my wife replied, "Go back to the basement, you idiot."
Yeah, which is fair, but we're not going to stop just because you hear what sounds like stampeding buffaloes overhead.
I'm not saying that when we asked them to quiet down, they started playing Wii games that required jumping.
And
Not
laughed
Wii,
at
Switch. I
Yeah.
sound so old. My God. The Wii?
The Wii U?
Yeah. Oh, man. Mid-30s.
Mid-30s. I wish mid-30s. My
Life comes at you fast.
my clock says mid-40s, but my body says mid-80s.
And your doctor says mid-80s.
Yeah,
too.
right? I'm pretty toast. Anyways, sports
Big
cards.
announcements. A lot
Yes.
happening in the last couple weeks. Some big announcements. We're going to jump right into it. The first off, the long-awaited moment. PSA was going to relieve all your worries. You got a stack of cards sitting around, ready to send off a bunch of dimed-out base rookies, and wouldn't you know it? What's the noise for The Price is Right? Bum, bum, ba-dum. It doesn't
Yeah,
go
they
exactly like you want.
opened the next service level
Express,
on the first Express. They raised the price,
which is probably still not as fast as the Pony Express.
right, and it's $200 a card.
That was
So
a pretty solid dad joke. Pony Express. No.
no, it's okay though. So
$200 a card.
yes,
And they're saying probably, what, 4 to 6 weeks on that?
I haven't even seen the turn times on it. I saw $200 a card and laughed.
Is it that much different from 300? Are you?
Well,
Are you?
It's $100.
But like when you're sending in a card, the difference between a 9 and a 10, that $100, it's still $200.
Well,
Like-
no, for sure. I mean, it boils down to everybody who thought PSA on July 1st was suddenly just going to open the floodgates again. I've been trying to tell anybody that had ears and a brain, it's not happening.
Just straight up over here, like beware the Ides of March.
Yeah, it's not happening. Guys, it's going to be the end of 2022, beginning of 2023 before an economy or a bulk level opens up again at PSA. If they ever open it
and
up.
I had a novel thought with this. All of the brand loyalists, which are still
For no good reason.
I'm not in the no good reason camp,
I am.
but I think that it has been established as a standard. They're losing footing on this as we speak. And their conversation in some interviews that I was reading around, we're trying to hire employees as quickly as possible, this and that. Like, everyone's having a hard time keeping employees. And from what I understand, unless I'm mistaken, I'd love somebody to correct me, the graders are paid so poorly.
Oh no, it's awful. Like
Yeah.
the problem that these grading companies have is the problem that a lot of them, we will do everything in our power to not delve into societal and political stuff because you guys aren't here for that. But the reality is if you're in business and you're greedy, you're going to have a hard time getting good employees that can do the job properly. I think PSA starts guys at $12 or $13 an hour as a grader. Like you're sending somebody a card that has a raw value of $10,000 or $15,000 and they make $12 an hour and they're grading your card.
In the words of the chicken farmer in Napoleon Dynamite, forgot my pocketbook.
Yeah.
Hope you don't mind I pay you in change.
Yeah, it's like there's a disconnect there. And I know that Jason keeps saying that PSA is established, and I guess that's true to an extent.
They have not been dethroned yet.
But the thing
That's-
is they were originally BGS was the gold standard. And then PSA came in and they both PSA's been around longer than BGS, but BGS was the gold standard. PSA came in and started handing out 10s like candy, and we've all seen these cards that you look at and you're like, are you kidding me right now? Like, this is where we're at. And so they became kind of the standard then, because everybody wanted to send their cards for, $12 a piece and get a 10 on their off-center stuff and then flip it. The reality of it is very simple. At the end of the day, all of these grading companies, especially the big, four, PSA, BGS, SGC, and I guess either HGA or CSG, they're all doing the exact same thing. They're grading cards under the exact same standards, and 9 out of 10 times, a card that you send to PSA is going to get the same grade as it would at Beckett. It's going to get the same grade as it would anywhere else. But some of y'all have decided that if it's in a kind of ugly case with a red and white label, it's worth way more, and it makes potato sense to me.
Potato sense. I like that. It's one of my favorite things that you say.
Yeah.
But back to this brand loyalty, I think that one of the things we're not even embracing yet is until that changes, until this concept of a more competitive market in grading exists where whatever it takes for that to shift, I think it's starting to happen with what we're seeing with SGC. I think until that happens, the moment a more economical option becomes available at PSA, I know for myself, I have a whole tray of cards I've pre-graded that are labeled PSA. The floodgates of millions of cards of people still believing that these base rookie 10s are going to triple their investment immediately. That stockpile, just because it's not in Southern California right now, doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
Right.
It's in people's homes. And the moment that option becomes available, what's stopping this from being backlogged another 2 years? Are you going to prepare for another 10 million cards?
Well, the thing is,
man, this Red Bull slushy's on point right
it's
now.
there. What's going to happen is they're not going to open up a level that's $20 or $30. No. I think PSA is probably going to have their economy level at $50. So the positive to that is for those of us who have made a good chunk of change by grading base cards and flipping them and lower value stuff and getting it graded and moved up. SGC is really making a push right now. They're the only grading company of the big three that are turning things quickly. And I will stand by this until the day I die. They grade more consistently than any other grading company. Maybe BGS is close, but SGC grades more consistently than PSA does, and it's not even close. And they're turning stuff in less than 2 weeks on their standard price point, like $30. I'm going to get my cards back in less than 2 weeks, and I'm good to roll. Now, you may not like their slab. You may not like their label. I don't really care. I don't particularly like PSA slab or label either, but the reality of it is the purpose of getting a card graded is to have an independent authority examine the card and confirm the condition of the card so that there's a standardized way to market it.
And protect it.
Right. So that's the PSA stuff. Big PSA news was they did that. Also, they bought Golden Auctions.
Yeah.
If you're not familiar with Golden Auctions, Ken Golden runs the biggest sports card auction, group out there. And there's a lot of concern, I think, in the industry right now with PSA purchasing them, that there could be some shenanigans that come into play there. Like, do we, if we got a card that we know is going to be going through Golden, do we, jack up that grade a little bit to get it where it needs to be so it gets the highest price?
Yeah.
Anytime you're cross-pollinating in that way, there's the potential for shenanigans.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think on the super high-end stuff, unless people are still sitting on some sealed boxes of exquisite, a lot of this high-end stuff has been graded, but it does open the door for that possibility. Now, from what I understand, they've structured things legally where, other grading companies are not going to be pushed out with these gradings or be treated differently. Ken Golden has signed a contract to still remain a big part of the company over a few years.
Ask all the people involved in the class action lawsuit against PSA how much their illegal loopholes help things out.
I'm telling you what. Just coming out guns a-blazing.
Guys, listen, here's the reality. I'm not a fan of PSA and their business practices. I recognize that their slabs hold more value in the current market than anybody else, but I think they are a shady company, and I don't like the way they do business.
Boy, if we really ran that philosophy through all the different areas of influence in market.
Oh, yeah. We could be here for days.
Yeah.
We have 6 kinds of fun.
You wouldn't wear half the ugly shoes that you wear.
Probably not. But
What are
I
you
do.
wearing right now, by the way?
Oh,
What
these are just some New Balance More Highs. They're nice. I'm a big fan. Comfy.
I almost said something horrible.
I'm glad that you didn't. I'm glad you just kept that on to keep it to yourself.
Yeah. I'm going to tuck that aside, but just know that it was a doozy.
So back to news. The other big piece of news that happened this week, Certified Collectibles Group was purchased by Blackstone. Now, Certified Collectibles Group is the company that owns CSG.
Which we talked about last week.
Yeah, we talked about CSG last time. I had a big rant about them. By the way, my submission finally got put into their system.
Because we're on the airwaves.
Yeah, finally got put into their system on June the 29th, roughly 2 months and 3 weeks after they received them. So that was pretty great. Maybe I'll get them back by 2022. That'll be awesome if it happens. But Blackstone Group purchased them, and basically it's a huge cash infusion. All the leadership team from CCG is still going to be in place. CCG owns, CSG, which is the sports card side of it. They own CCG, which is the comic side of things. They've got a lot going on. But the list of people involved in this transaction is pretty impressive. And I want to talk about it only because there's been so much talk lately during this little bit of a correction that we're seeing in the market that, it's junk wax era 2.0. Everything's crashing, blah, 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 blah.
Then give me your cards.
Yeah.
Just get
Businesses
out now.
like Blackstone and the people that are involved in this transaction, and we're talking about $500 million transaction
with
here.
a B.
Rock Nation is involved. Michael Rubin, who is the founder and executive chairman of Fanatics,
Rick
is
Rubin's
involved.
cousin.
And if y'all know who Rick Rubin is, good on you.
That's not true. It's not.
I know who Rick Rubin is.
Well, I know you know. I was saying that was. It's not actually.
No,
Rick
it's
Rubin.
not.
It might be.
Probably not.
Maybe second cousin.
There's a lot of Rubens, I guess. Anyways, Daryl Morey, who's basically the GM of the 76ers. He was with the Rockets. He was part of the trade that brought our boy, the Beard, James Harden, into Houston. He's involved in it. Andre Iguodala bought into it. These types of businesses and investors don't sink that kind of money into a market that is failing. Keep that in mind. We are in a correction. Everything drastically overheated from the end of 2020 into about February of 2021. It overheated like crazy, and now we're getting back to some semblance of normal. Keep in mind, we are still 3 or 4 times higher than we were pre-pandemic with most of this stuff.
Yeah.
You could buy PSA 10 Luka Prism rookies before the pandemic for $50 to $75. They're still $600. So it's not like we're crashing. They're just not $1,200 anymore. I hear people saying, well, the market's really so I can't sell anything right now. Well, yeah, if you bought a Zion rookie PSA 10 base Prism for $1,000 and nobody wants to buy it for $900, it doesn't mean the market's dying. It means that you paid too much for it.
Yeah, and take a deep breath, because I think a lot of times, because this is the flip side of a volatile market. We love the volatility when somebody goes off for that triple-double and, wow, I could sell this right now. But most of the time we still don't sell it. Sometimes we do. But when we're talking about a Zion, the reason people were hyping him is because they thought he was a generational talent. So when you're buying into this card at that price point, I'm hopeful that you also have a long-term scenario. Not everybody does. Some people are day trading with cards. That's an interesting philosophy. It's fun.
Yep.
I'd love to be able to put that kind of risk into it. I'm just a little bit risk averse with that to invest that heavily. But Zion is still Zion. The reason you got into Zion, we're pumped on Zion, is because he's a beast.
Yeah.
If he stays healthy, you won't be too sad about this. I think we're going to be fine. And we're already starting to see some key players see a little bit of growth in the numbered parallels, autos, some cards that were running low. They're already starting to show some signs of growth. There's a little bit of a pulse in this again. But when you see big money like this repositioning, it's not a mass evacuation. It's not a mass evacuation from this market or industry like we've seen in some other markets or industries. So I think it's something where, just like you're saying, Gary, like we're seeing big dollars position themselves in a way. I think what's interesting is when you see all of these things happening with grading companies, I think it at least acknowledges there's a problem. And the first group people, the first couple companies that kind of come through on the other side of this with the customer service that's needed, scaling, growth, hiring, whatever needs to happen for this to actually address the needs of the collectors, they're going to come out sitting on a gold mine.
Oh, for sure. And it all boils down to, at the end of the day, as collectors, and I think I speak for the vast majority of people who are in this hobby, all I want is what I paid for. It's very simple. When I buy a hobby box of something, I don't have an expectation that I'm going to hit a one-of-one monster card every time I buy a hobby box. My expectation is, however, if the box says it has 12 packs with 12 cards in each pack, that I have a box that has 12 cards with 12 packs in it. Well, I send something off for grading and I pay $45 or $50 or $300, and it says when I send the card in that the turn time is 20 to 25 days, I expect to have my card back in 20 to 25 days, not 6 months.
Well, in a lot of industries too, if they can't meet those expectations, there's an effort to correct the problem. That's where I feel like there's a big difference in the space.
They don't care. They have your
They're
property.
hurting my feelings, and they don't even care about it.
Well, the problem with this industry is that when I send my stuff off to get graded, I have now handed my property to somebody else. They have all the leverage. All of it. That's why when I got on the phone with CSG last week and just lost my mind, I was like, listen, I either want my cards back in a holder with a grade or I want my cards back. And they told me to kick rocks. They don't care.
Yeah, I did want to correct you on one thing you said.
What's that?
You said it takes a lot for you to get that upset to call somebody.
Maybe it doesn't.
That's a lie.
Maybe I have a hair trigger.
I have seen you throw a raging fit over being mischarged for correction on boneless wings at Buffalo Wild Wings.
That's not what happened.
Yeah, it is, bro.
No, it isn't. It wasn't
Oh
boneless
my
wings. No.
God. You acted like a fourth grader.
Well, that's fair, but that wasn't what caused it. I wasn't overcharged. They shorted my order, and
By the way, before we get going with this is at least 11 or 12 years ago.
Yeah, but I have all the details.
Let's hear it.
So I ordered, they have these Southwest bites. It was like black beans and cheese and deliciousness. And I ordered them and they shorted my order. They were missing 2. So I said, hey, and keep in mind, it took them 2 hours to bring me these.
Also keep in mind, there's a table with at least 5 guys over 300 pounds sitting here.
So
you shorted me 2 Southwest bites.
And their response was, okay, we'll take care of that. We're sorry. And I was fine. And then they brought me my bill and they took 59 cents off. And I snapped.
It was so
absolutely
bad.
snapped.
The rest of the table got up and left. Can I finish the story?
Sure.
The rest of the table got up and left, went out to the parking lot for a good 5 to 7 minutes. Third-party embarrassment through the roof. We don't want to be associated with this fit. He is going on about it. At this point, it's a principal matter for him.
Oh, 100%.
I want to pay him the difference so we can leave. Nothing happens. Everyone's out like, oh my gosh, this is so embarrassing. A few minutes later, Gary comes out. This is how long ago this was. With 3 $5 gift certificates. Was it 5 or was it more?
There were 10 each.
3 $10 gift certificates. And I wish I could remember the quote you said, but you basically were dancing, making it rain gift certificates because you won.
I did win. That's exactly right.
But the graders right now
Can't win.
by and large. Not everybody. I mean, we're playing a lot of good cop, bad cop here, but the customer experience doesn't seem to be that important right now.
No, not at all. They've got in PSA's situation, they've got 10 million cards sitting that the moment that they input them in their system, they get paid. So they don't care. Yeah. It's just sitting there. So anyhow, we can just go on bitching about grading companies forever.
Yeah. So a lot happening, a lot moving in the market. Things are repositioning, and we want to talk about players that are hot, who should be a pop, and who should be a drop right after this.
Looking for new insights on the Cleveland sports scene with a unique side of Cleveland sports history? Then you found the perfect podcast. I'm John Sable.
And I'm Scott Sable, and we're hosts of the Sable Brothers on the Baseline podcast, a podcast about Cleveland sports, but not your typical podcast about the land's sports teams. Join us as we embark on a journey of sharing a unique and historical side of Cleveland sports history with the help of some former Cleveland sports stars and other historical figures.
All right here on the Sable Brothers on the Baseline podcast, part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
For the Dennis Maniloff Show, I'll tap into my 40-plus years of following Cleveland sports and 30-plus years of writing and talking about them, so as to bring you informed opinions and analysis of your favorite players and teams. I also will monitor the national sports scene and, when warranted, step out of the toy department and into the real world. And I'll always be on the lookout for special guests. By all means, join us.
Hello, Brooks here with the Books with Brooks monthly book club podcast. We read one book a month and then we talk about it. Books like Stephen King's The Shining or Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens. If you're on the hunt for book recommendations and enjoy sparkling conversation, come read along with us and then listen in.
We're back, and it's time for Pop or Drop. So let's go through a list. This is where we talk about players that have either had some stuff going on, or we're looking at the next season, or maybe they've had a hot couple of weeks. And the question is this: is this somebody that is a pop or a drop? You want to break down what that means a little bit more?
Yeah, and we'll keep refreshing this for people that are new to the podcast. So pop and drop does not mean we think it's a good player, bad player. It means that the value of the cards are at a point where it makes sense to sell them or to buy them. That's all that this is. No more, no less. So when we say somebody's a pop, that means we think it's a good buy with potential to go up. When we say somebody's a drop, it means that maybe we think they've reached the point where you're going to make the most you can on them right now, and you can cash out and maybe buy back in later at a lower point.
Right. So up first, Chris Paul.
Chris Paul would be a pop right now. His stuff has just never really moved. The Suns have finally, and by the time you hear this, we might be into game 1 of the NBA Finals, but he finally made it to his first NBA Finals. He's a guy who I think is pretty universally recognized as a top 5 or 6 point guard of all time. Mm-hmm. Finally has a chance to win a title. And I think that, especially with what's going on in the East with Giannis and Trae Young, both, even if they come back being a little bit hobbled, I think that the Suns have a good chance to win that. You can buy his Topps PSA 10 rookie card for $600 right now. I think there's a lot of room for growth when you think about guys like Dwayne Wade, who are 2.5, 3 times that price point. And I don't think Dwayne Wade's a top 5 shooting guard of all time. He's a top 10 shooting guard of all time, but he's not top 5.
That's a ludicrous statement.
You think he's a top 5 shooting guard of all time? Really?
I just don't like anyone disrespecting Dwayne Wade.
I'm not disrespecting.
I felt disrespected.
He's a top
I felt
10.
disrespected for Dwayne.
Top 10 shooting guard of all time. That's impressive. Think about all the guys that have played too in the NBA.
There have been a few of them, I guess.
Yeah. So anyway, I think Chris Paul's a pop right now.
And I just want to say, we're finishing up this series right now, but I love all of our options. I wouldn't have guessed we'd be sitting at this point with these final 3 teams. Not really your big market teams. Would you have predicted this?
I thought there was a pretty good chance the Suns might come out of the West. A lot of people thought that the Lakers were just a shoo-in. Was not surprised that they got beat in the first round. Yeah, I think that if Jamal Murray had been healthy, the Nuggets might have been who came out of the West. But with what happened in the West, now in the East, the Hawks being where they are is shocking to me.
They're scrapping.
They're playing hard. The problem that they're having is if they have an off night shooting, they can't make up for it.
Yeah.
If they're hitting, they're going to crush. But if they have an off night shooting,
and their pace is helping them too.
Yeah. And Trae Young being dinged up didn't help the other night, but. Yeah.
So that series may be wrapped up by the time you're listening to this, but those are 3 teams I wouldn't have guessed early in the season we'd be sitting here in this situation.
No, well, and speaking of the Hawks, I think we have another pop or drop name there, don't we?
Yeah, old Kevin Huerter.
Kevin Huerter, as much as this is going to probably surprise you for me to say, I think Kevin Huerter is a drop right now. And you said it earlier as to why you think that is.
Yeah, I think he reminds me of Hero.
Yeah, his little Tyler Hero action.
Yeah, when he's Hero, Wizards of the West Coast. I say things the way I want to say them. But you have this streaky playoff clutch performance stepping into a role. You're seeing somebody that's a role player that when they find that fit and that rhythm, they're really showing up and they're delivering in a way the team needs them greatly.
They both look like they're 12 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's a great point.
Yeah, they do. They're like 6'7", 12-year-olds.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. That's true. Yeah. Let's shift over to baseball for a minute. Wander Franco.
I think you and I disagree on this one. I think Wander Franco long-term is going to be a great player. I think that right now, this moment, he is a drop, and then he'll be a pop in about 2 months.
Here's a thought.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you've been following this. I was listening the other day. As we know, commissioner's cracking down on this spider tack.
Rob Manfred is destroying baseball.
Yeah, he has no problem with that. At least it's not Selig calling a tie.
Give me back Bud Selig.
Stop it!
I will
now.
take Bud Selig
Get
back
outta
right
here.
now.
He called a tie at the end of an All-Star game in 14 innings.
Give me back Bud Selig.
Anyway, so here's my thought. Like with that happening, there has been so far, they've got like a week of stats. I mean, baseball is a statistician
Words.
numbers. If you like stats, you like baseball. But what's happening, there's a direct correlation of them cracking down on this and the number of runs. We're going to see more and more runs. Home runs and runs drive up the interest in baseball.
That's true. You
It
know what else
happens.
we're going to see? A lot more Tommy John surgery.
Yeah, that's great. I don't care. I want to see some dingers. I want to see dingers.
Well, we've been seeing lots of dingers this
We're
year.
going to see more and more runs, and I think there'll be more and more attention. You got some interesting things happening, some players stepping up, some big-time growth, and players that are just a couple years in. I'm still thinking Franco is a pop. I know there's correction going on and all that. I do think he is that guy. I do think there's still room for growth in the short term even. Obviously a long hold, but I'm all about it.
I would say if you're buying him now, he is absolutely going to be somebody you stick in a box for 10 years. Like, I don't think you can buy his stuff where it's at right now and flip it. His stuff, when he got called up, his stuff jumped 25% in 3 days. He'll have to hit 380 the rest of the year and 20 more home runs just to maintain where it's at.
Yeah,
right now.
I think that I would base more of it on the fact that I'm seeing some of that market correction already see a little bit of growth, and I think that there's still room for that in this season.
All right, so we
Up
disagree
next-
on that one.
Yeah, up next, another name I'm going to butcher, Adolis Garcia.
Adolis Garcia.
Yeah, I got
you
one
got it right.
right.
Good
Yeah,
job,
let's
man.
go.
So Adolis Garcia is a drop, and unlike most of the time when I talk about pop or drop and it being whether it's a good player or bad player, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that this dude is probably going to win Rookie of the Year in the AL this year, or at least to have a really good shot at it. And he's also going to be a slightly below league average player for the rest of his career. He's 28 years old. He's hit some home runs, but what's really concerning is he has not hit very many doubles. And if all you are doing is hitting the ball in the air and you're not getting doubles as well as home runs, your contact rate isn't great. And again, he's 28 years old and he's a rookie. His stuff jumped 10x. You could buy his Bowman Chrome autos at the beginning of the season for $3 to $4, and they're selling for base ones are selling for 60 to 80. Numbered stuff is selling for 150 to 160. If you have that stuff, sell it as fast as you possibly can.
So that is a drop.
That is a huge drop.
All right. Fan favorite here at the Otero house, Zeke.
Oh, Ezekiel Elliott. Running backs in the NFL and the hobby do not usually play nicely together for the long term. I would say, that being said, that I think you can see some short-term gains coming into the NFL season this year, and I would say that Zeke is a pop right now, especially if you can get your hands on any of his graded, colored, and numbered rookie stuff. Cowboys should be back to full force. Dak coming
What does
back.
that mean? Because I think that's the real conversation around Zeke is what does full force Dallas look like?
Well, if Dak's healthy,
Which Dallas is showing up?
if Dak is healthy with CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper, I mean, you look at the numbers that CeeDee Lamb was putting up in the first 5 weeks last year before Dak hurt his ankle. it was a scary pace. Like, it was Justin Jefferson into the season with 1,400 yards and 12 or 13 touchdowns. CeeDee Lamb would have been right there with him if Dak had stayed healthy. The offensive line has been retooled, and I think that you could see Zeke in a situation where he's challenging for the league lead again in rushing. And this is probably going to be close to the last window for him. He's entering year 6 in the league.
So.
And for running backs, that's when you start to usually see a little bit of a decline start to kick in. So he's a pop to me, but he's a pop that I'm going to sell after week 4 if he's got 500 yards rushing already.
Fair enough.
Yep.
Let's move down to the AZ, Kyler Murray.
Yeah. So
Interesting things happening with him right now.
yes. So Kyler Murray is a guy who I'm a pop on everything but his Prism stuff. His Prism stuff is really high still, and I don't know that it can sustain those numbers. His other stuff, though, his Donruss, his Optic, that's all stuff that you can get at a good price point, and I think that with what they're doing with that offense, as long as Cliff Kingsbury doesn't go full Cliff Kingsbury, that the Cardinals are going to be pretty good offensively this year. They're going to look for a whole year like they did for the first 8 weeks last year.
All right, moving right along. Chenault.
Laviska Shenault. I'm huge on this kid for 2 reasons. 1, Trevor Lawrence. And 2, he is...
Trevor Lawrence.
Well, no. So Urban Meyer being the head coach in Jacksonville, there go the elephants again. Urban Meyer has a penchant for using this type of a player. He is a do-it-all type of guy. He's a guy they will run jet sweeps with. He's a guy they will put in the eye in the backfield with a fullback and bounce him outside. They'll throw the ball to him. He's just a do-it-all type of player, and I could absolutely see a 13 or 14 touchdown year for him with 800 or 900 yards receiving and 300 or 400 yards rushing. He'll probably return some punts. Like, he's a heck of a player, and his stuff is cheap.
Tim Tebow. I'm just kidding.
I don't want to play this game.
Let's play it.
I don't want to play the Tim Tebow game at all.
All right. But he doesn't get enough press.
Okay.
All right, let's talk about a few NFL rookies as we wrap up this segment.
Yeah, some sleepers coming
Yeah,
up.
some
Late round
sleepers.
picks.
Under the radar NFL rookies. Davis Mills. Let's talk about him.
Listen, if you want to speculate, and this is all this
I
is.
do.
If you want to speculate on quarterbacks, I think that Davis Mills is a guy who is worth throwing some cash at. He is a better player than Jacob Eason by a lot, and he has a clearer path to some snaps than Jacob Eason does by a lot, and Jacob Eason stuff sells. Davis Mills is in Texas. If you guys weren't aware, he's playing for the Texans. Nobody knows what's going to happen with Deshaun Watson, if anything. I think that even if Deshaun Watson gets cleared of all the mess that he's found himself in, that he will never take another snap for the Houston Texans. He's made that very clear.
Wow. Yeah.
So you've got a pretty clear path. Davis Mills played for Stanford. Junior year, he looked really, really good. Senior year was the mess of COVID, so it was a little up and down, but he's got all the tools in the world.
Rashad Bateman.
Rashad Bateman is another guy that I like. He's in Baltimore. They finally drafted a big speed threat on the outside who can get open for Lamar. Everybody thought it was going to be Marquise Brown. Marquise Brown can't run a route to save his life. He's skinny. He's tiny. Rashad Bateman is going to open things up. Yeah, we want
Anybody can be
thick
skinny.
dudes that can't run.
Thick dudes?
Yeah, that can't run. Yeah.
Ball card show. Thick dudes.
So Rashad Bateman is a guy that I like a lot.
Javonte Williams.
Javonte Williams, 2nd round pick for the Denver Broncos. Quick, who's the Denver Broncos starting running back?
Tim Tebow.
Exactly. They've bounced back and forth between guys. They haven't found anybody that they like. I think that this kid, by the end of the year, is going to be an 18 to 20 carry a game type of guy. They've got a pretty good line there. They've got all the receivers in the world. We'll see if Drew Lock can be healthy and do something with them. But that's a kid that could put up 1,000 yards as a rookie, and you're going to be able to get cheap early in the year.
Nice. So hopefully you're taking notes, writing down some players. We want to hear from you. If you have a chance to hop on our Facebook page or group, Ball Card Show, we'd love to hear who you have as your under-the-radar NFL rookies. Argue with us.
Yeah, you can try.
Anybody can argue.
Yeah, but not well. We're pretty good at
Are
it.
you arguing with yourself right now?
Absolutely. That's
Thick
how you
guys.
practice.
Thick guys.
You have to practice.
Speaking of thick guys, I have this pork
Where
butt.
is this going?
I have this pork butt I've been working on for about 14 hours now.
It's pretty deep into the process.
We're getting hungry. We are thick guys.
That's true.
We got to promise never to say those words again.
Well, if we avoid giant 32-ounce
You
Red
mind
Bull
your-
slushies before we podcast,
You're not
we
my
might
dad.
be able to do that.
You're not my dad. You can't tell me what to do.
Speaking of your dad, he won the trivia contest from episode 3.
Dad is the super fan of the Ball Card Show. Here's the truth. He did not know when the episode was being released. The episode was about 55 minutes long. I would say 57 minutes after the episode dropped.
It was Alfonso Soriano.
I found and not only posted in one place, but I had like 8 notifications.
We appreciate you, Mark.
Nothing but the finest of Chronicles Herbert for you. But hey, you never know. You could prove Gary wrong, and he could be an absolute pop this season. Maybe the Chargers are going to be monsters this year.
Nah.
Probably not.
Nope.
All right. That's it for this week. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast. Take a minute to fill out a review. We'd love to hear how much you love the show. And if you don't, mind your own business.
Yeah, and while you're at it, check out some of the other pods on the Press Play
Absolutely.
Podcast Network. There's some good stuff out there. Even if you're not into, if it's not just sports, you want to hear some movie reviews or book club type stuff, there's some really good content on the Press Play Network.
We'll see you soon.